Sometimes too much of a good thing is still too much. Often pictures taken with a digital camera can be really sharp with too much contrast, so your pictures might come out looking a little harsh. But there are lots of ways to soften images as you take the pictures and as you print them. Today I'm going to show you how to work with light and various types of diffusion to soften your photos. Then I'll show you some techniques for printing a softer picture on your computer. Relax those sharp edges, next on The Whole Picture. Welcome to The Whole Picture. I'm Erin Manning. You know, we all do our best to take a good photograph, but sometimes paying attention to the composition and the focus with your digital camera just isn't enough. You might end up with pictures with really dark shadows and really bright highlights that accent lines and angles you were hoping that might not be emphasized. And then in those dark shadows and bright highlights, you might lose all the details that you were hoping would appear. And then so you just end up with a lot of digital photographs that you want to delete. Well, that's because digital cameras overall don't have the capacity to capture the range of tone between the dark darks and the bright brights like your film camera does. But that's okay, don't worry. There are plenty of ways to capture beautiful soft photographs with your digital camera, just like the pros. Take a look at some pictures I took using some softening techniques. Now here's a photograph of a family I took outside, and I used a big bounce card to bounce the light back into their faces and really soften everything and bring out the detail. In this photograph of this woman on the beach, beautiful woman, it was a beautiful day, but the light was a little bit harsh, so what I did is I put some pantyhose over my lens and really softened it up a little bit. Now, I have a student, Ken Clayton, and he called to let me know he's going to be taking pictures at his daughter's wedding, and he wants to make sure everything's really beautiful and soft and all the details are there. So he's been practicing with his digital camera. Here's a photograph he sent me, and you can tell already that in the dark areas he's lost detail, and in the bright areas there is no detail, and in the faces there are a lot of dark shadows and lines that I'm guessing he probably doesn't want to have there. Now, Ken knows he can improve on his pictures, so before the big wedding day, he wants to practice to get it right. So I'm going to head over to his house and teach him some techniques to soften his photographs. The first thing I'm going to teach you is how to work with bouncing the light to soften it, and that way you get rid of all the contrast and shadows in your pictures. Next, I'll show you how using common household items in front of your lens can help diffuse that harsh lighting. Then I'll show you some advanced techniques for working with filters in front of your camera's lens. And finally, we'll come back here to the studio and work with the pictures on the computer and enhance them even more. Now, before we get started, I want to show you some of my professional lights, and this will really help illustrate some of the concepts we're going to go over today. Now, this is a little light that shines into an umbrella, and this light then bounces back on your subject. It's a big diffuse light source, so it's really going to be soft light, very pretty. You might remember this from getting your picture taken at high school. Now, this is called a softbox, and inside is the bulb here, and it shines through this diffuse fabric, and it really kind of diffuses and softens the light on your subject. It's really pretty light. Now, these are professional lights. If you're an amateur photographer, there are things you can use around your home that give you a similar effect. For instance, some of the things I'm going to be bringing with me today, this white card we can use as a bounce card. So let's say the light's coming from over there. I'm going to use it to bounce it then on my subject, and it will create a nice, soft, diffused light. I'm also going to be bringing some pantyhose. And I know, kind of weird, pantyhose, but if you put these in front of your lens, they help diffuse the light coming into your camera. Makes it really pretty. I'm also going to bring this petroleum jelly, and I'll show you how putting this on the lens will also giving you a softening effect. And as an added bonus, I'm going to bring a lot of my filters, and I'll show Ken how putting these in front of his camera's lens will create even more softening effects. Okay, I'm going to head over to Ken's now, and while I'm headed over there, take a look at some other photographs I've taken that will show you some of the same softening techniques you'll learn today. It's interesting that camera manufacturers are producing sharper and crisper products, while many photographers are leaning towards softer, more diffused looks in their images. Up next, I'll show you how to create a soft light source that will make your subject look more beautiful than ever, here on The Whole Picture. Welcome back to The Whole Picture. Photos taken with a digital camera often seem to have hard edges, extremes in contrast, and too much detail compared with pictures taken on a film camera. But there are many techniques for softening the image you take with your digital camera. My student Ken Clayton has experienced this problem with pictures he's taken. Harsh lighting made the pictures he took of his daughter look rather severe. So I'm meeting Ken at his home to work on making softer, more pleasing pictures of his daughter. Hey, Ken.
Hi, Erin. How are you?
Great. How you doing?
Doing fine.
All right, let's take some pictures.
Hey, let's do. Come on in. That'll be great. Thanks for coming. Erin, I'd like you to meet my daughter, Lauren. Lauren, this is Erin.
Lauren, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
You look great in this color.
Oh, thank you very much.
You know what, Ken, I'm also noticing you have a lot of pictures around here. You must like to photograph.
I love to take photographs and collect them, and rather than put them in books, I'd rather have them out here where we can see them all the time.
Good idea. And you know, I hear you're also taking pictures of Lauren next year
right.
at her wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, soft photographs. I would
Romantic.
imagine.
That's what I'm looking for.
Well, this might be a good time to illustrate the difference between hard light and soft
Okay,
light.
great.
All right, so I'm going to do it just by using this lamp over here. I'm going to take off the lampshade. We already have some hard light with this beer light bulb. I'm just going to point it directly at Lauren, and you can see how this harsh light creates a lot
I
of
can see the shadows.
dark shadows on her face. Not so flattering. And if you were to photograph this with your digital camera, the digital camera would make the picture very contrasty, even more so than what we see with our eyes, because the digital camera can't capture the range of tone that we see with our eyes. Okay, so that's the hard light.
All right.
Now, let's try a soft light demonstration. If you just want to, say, grab one of those whiteboards back there, I'll show you another way to use the light.
Here you go.
This way we're going to create a broader light source by using a bounce card and just reflecting that light that's above her head back onto her face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and as you can see, this definitely gets rid of, there are no harsh shadows here, and the light's a lot softer. When you're working with soft lighting, the first thing to do is turn off your flash and set the camera on automatic. The first principle of soft lighting is the position of your light source. Start by setting up a stand to clip your main light, or key light as it's known professionally. We're using a ladder, though a coat rack would work, or even the edge of a bookcase. The light we're using is a simple open-faced utility light with a 50-watt bulb you can buy for very little at any hardware store. You want to position your key light a little high and slightly to the side of your subject. Lauren is sitting down, so this low ladder will be just the right height. There are several ways to create a soft light effect. We'll begin with bounced light. Turn your open-faced light away from your subject. We're using a piece of white poster board to bounce or reflect the light back onto Lauren's face. Hold the poster board in front of the light. Remember to hold it at least 8 inches from the light for safety. Now move the bounce card in and away from the key light, finding the right distance that creates the best level of light on your subject. Next, you can experiment with rotating the bounce card slightly to vary the angle of light that falls on your subject. Light diffusion is another way of softening your image. You just need a heat-safe, semi-transparent material between your subject and a light. For this soft light method, we turn the open-faced key light back toward our subject Lauren, again positioning the light slightly to the side and above her eye line. Then we hold material between the key light and our subject to diffuse the light source. Make sure the pillowcase isn't touching the light. You don't want to start a fire. For a slightly different look, a little warmer and a little less diffused, you can do the same thing with tissue paper. Hold the tissue paper between your light and your subject. Again, direct the light through this diffusion towards your subject. Now let's look at a professional method for working with soft lighting. This is called a softbox. Softboxes take a small direct light source and expand it to the dimensions of the box. By creating a larger light source, your subject is illuminated with more gradual transitions from highlight to shadow, making the picture softer and more pleasing. So here's some other ideas you can use to soften your images by putting something in front of the lens of the camera. Now, remember those old movies from the 30s and 40s? Carol Lombard was kissing Clark Gable. Right before the kiss, everything went soft and romantic. Well, that was because the cameraman put something soft in front of the lens.
Oh, okay.
Stockings. And this is a
Pretty good
really,
idea.
yeah, it's a great idea. It makes a really soft picture. Now, this is a kind of a finely weaved stocking. It'll give us a little bit of a glow. If we were to get a more coarser weaved stocking, we'd have more of a glow.
Okay.
Or if you get another color, it'll kind of give a nice tonal wash throughout the picture. And this black one's really nice too.
Oh, yeah, that does make a nice effect, doesn't it? I like that.
Really softens the image. Okay, now I have another way for you to soften the image.
Cool.
Ever heard the word vignette?
Oh, yeah, it's that nice soft edge around a portrait or a photograph, and then it goes into the hard focus in the center.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and those old portraits, they would soften the
beautiful
edges.
like
It
that.
was really pretty. Well, we have a way we can do it too with some common household items, like a piece of saran wrap.
Okay, got
Just
that.
put this right in front of your camera lens like this, and we'll put a little petroleum jelly just around the edges of the lens, and that will soften the image. To create a soft glow effect, use a piece of stocking in front of your lens. Stretch the stocking over the lens and use a rubber band to attach it to the lens. Soft focus isn't the same as being out of focus. Things are still in focus, just softened. Contrast is decreased, and there's a halo-like glow surrounding your subject. If you want to increase the glow effect of your stocking diffusion, slightly release the stretch of the stocking. The more the weave shows, the more the light will flow around it, creating that glow effect. And a black mesh produces greater contrast than light-colored mesh. Another at-home diffusion you can put in front of the lens will result in a vignetting effect. To make a vignetting diffusion at home, start with a piece of plastic wrap. Stretch it over your lens with a rubber band or tape it taut to your camera's body. Next, smear the edges of your plastic wrap with some petroleum jelly. You can add more or less depending on how soft you want your corners to be. Leave the center free of that petroleum jelly so your subject is in focus. For more information on soft lighting and diffusion, be sure to check out our website at DIYnetwork.com. While you're there, you can also see more of the pictures we took today. Inspired by the effects we created through putting simple textures in front of the lens? When we come back, I'll teach you some techniques for working with professional filters to soften the quality and keep the focus. Next on The Whole Picture. Welcome back to The Whole Picture. To take pictures that make your subject look beautiful, you often need to soften the lighting by bouncing it or directing it through some sort of diffusion that reduces those harsh shadows and brings out the more subtle gradations of light. We've looked at some homemade diffusions to put in front of your lens. Now let's look at some professional filters that can soften your images while giving you more control over the effect. Welcome back to The Whole Picture. I'm Erin Manning, and I'm teaching Ken Clayton how to take beautiful, soft photographs of his daughter, Lauren. Now, Ken, you were taking some great photographs back there, just putting things in front of the lens to soften the image. And what was really nice about it was they were just things from around the house. What professional photographers like to use, though, is something called a filter. Now, they're made by a lot of different manufacturers in various types and densities, and they oftentimes will screw right onto the lens. But as you probably know with your point and shoot, that's really not a possibility.
Yeah, there's no threads on mine.
Right. Well, that's where a filter holder system is really nice. Now, this one is made specifically for my professional camera, but I'm going to show you one that works perfectly on your point and shoot camera.
Great.
First, let's attach the filter holder to our camera. There are wonderful filter holders made just for point-and-shoot cameras like this one. You just screw it onto the bottom of your camera. Position the filter holder in front of your lens. Zoom out your lens to make sure it's not going to bump into the filters. Then, slide your filters into the holder. Now, let's look at our image with the bubble filter. Next, let's try a wedding filter. And how about a mesh filter? Okay, here's an extra bonus tip. With these filter holder systems, it's really easy to take your extra filters and stack them together for just the effect you want.
Oh, cool.
Just like that.
Great.
Make sure you don't get any fingerprints on there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, keep shooting. Take lots of
Okay.
pictures. I'm going to head out to my studio, but I'll see you there tomorrow. We'll work on the computer and enhance the pictures even more and soften them in different ways.
Great. We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks for your help today.
You're
It's been
welcome.
great.
It's been fun. See y'all later. To filter or not to filter? That is the question. Up next, I'll teach you to soften your images with software. Then you can decide for yourself whether it's nobler to shoot with a filter or add filtration on the computer. Coming up on The Whole Picture. We've been learning some techniques for making softer images, whether through lighting, diffusion, or filters. You can change the mood of your picture. But what if you just couldn't control the lighting or had no diffusion or filters handy? For certain images, you don't want pictures that are too sharp, hard-edged, or heavy on contrast. Don't worry, I'm going to teach you how to use some great software techniques for softening your images after the fact. You know, I think it works. So did you get some good pictures of Lauren yesterday?
Yes, thanks to all those great tips you gave me. I really did. Thanks so much.
Well, I think you have some good ones here. They're on the
Oh,
computer.
that's pretty. I like that one.
Let's take a look.
Like that. That's nice.
That's nice. You bounce the light back on her, and you've got some really pretty skin tones. Her
I do like the
eyes
skin tones there.
are live, no
Yeah.
shadows.
Oh, that's pretty too.
Very nice.
Oh, that was outside. I love the pictures outside. That was really fun. And there's where you used the pantyhose. That was a great
yes,
idea. I
the
couldn't tell it in my
fabulous
camera,
pantyhose.
but that looks great. There was one of the filters you gave me. We used the filter adapter
right.
for.
Very
That was
dreamy
nice.
looking. That's good.
Oh, and that's the that was the
Right.
wedding. The wedding filter was what they call it. I
Yeah,
like
the wedding
that.
filter right on the bottom.
Oh, I like that one.
That's
pretty,
my
isn't it?
favorite, I think.
I think so. Offsetting the subject was really a great idea.
Yeah,
Thanks
so
for
she's
telling me
not
that.
smack in the middle. I think it looks more interesting that way. These are all great, but you know
Yeah.
what? Let's come back here and
Okay.
work on this one.
All right.
Reason being is I think it's a really nice photograph and you bounce the light, but we could enhance it even more.
Okay.
I always try to tell everyone to do a save as. We're going to
Okay.
come up here to File in the
right.
menu bar and roll down to Save As and name it something different or add on a few characters at the end
Okay.
to make it a different file. This way it becomes a copy and we're working on the
okay.
copy and archive the original just in case anything happens.
Great.
Now, in all image editing software programs, or most of them, they have layers. And I know
okay.
you've worked with a
Yes.
little bit of this before. So we'll come over here to our layers palette and let's do a duplicate layer. This way we're working on the duplicate layer of this exact same picture and we're leaving everything else behind it.
Oh, good idea.
And you'll understand why in just a moment.
Okay.
Okay, now let's go in and put a little, what's called a Gaussian blur over this entire photograph. So we'll come up here to the menu bar and click on Filter,
Okay.
roll down to Blur, and then carefully roll over to Gaussian blur. Now, you have a little slider down here, and the more you move it over to the right, you click
Yep,
and
a little
drag
bit
it,
far.
it gets very
Yeah,
blurry.
okay.
Well, that's the blurry Gaussian blur, and you've got a little sample of it right here in this window.
I like that. Oh,
So
that's
just
good.
kind of roll it to where you like it. Okay,
I like that. That looks good.
okay. Now we've got a little kind of soft blur on the entire picture, but her eyes are not as in focus as they were originally.
I liked them better sharpened.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and we'll sharpen the eyes by doing this. We're going to just erase the top layer that we softened over her eyes. We'll do that by coming over here to the toolbox, click on the eraser tool, okay? Now just go ahead and kind of lightly erase right over her pupil,
All right.
and that becomes sharper because that's the
Oh, I
image
see.
below the blurred image,
That looks great.
the layer.
I like
Okay,
that.
I think that looks really good.
It does.
Let's do a save and
Okay.
print it out. So just come up here to File, Save. Now, because we worked in layers, it's saving it as a different kind of file.
Okay.
That's all right. We'll save it as that, and that way we can come back and work on the layers later if you want to.
Okay, so that'll save all my layers. Great.
Exactly. Okay, and it's off to the printer. If you'd like to learn more about softening your images or any of the techniques you saw here today, just log on to our website at DIYnetwork.com. Okay, Ken, are you ready to see the final picture?
Yeah.
Okay. Ta-da!
Wow, that looks great. And I really like the way the eyes were sharpened. That makes a big difference.
Yeah, and everything else looks very soft and pretty and beautiful.
Thank you.
Now, I think when you take the pictures at the wedding, it's going to turn out great.
I think so. Thanks to your
All right.
help.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
Well, keep shooting and always bring your camera with you because the more pictures you take, the better you get.
Great.
I hope you'll use what you learned today and take your own beautiful soft photographs. Join me next time on The Whole Picture. All right, now let's try with one of these other ones. I'm thinking, yeah, that one.
I like
the one
that
we
one
really
too.
love.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It is. Some, I don't, you know,